Do you ever find yourself in a 1v1 inside of Crucible and think to yourselves, what kind of skincare does that Guardian use? Fellas, I present to you Geology. It's the skincare routine that will take care of you day in and day out. Duel after duel, sweaty match after sweaty match. With 30 awards and over 7,000 5-star customer reviews, Geology brings the best ingredients, approved by dermatologists, to take care of all of your skin needs. Geology makes taking that first step in creating a skincare routine easy. It takes 30 seconds, guys. Fill out a short quiz, and you'll have a routine customized just for you. From face wash to shampoos to under eye care, which gets rid of those dark circles, nobody can match Geology skincare. Now this month, Geology is offering 70% off your personalized skincare trial set with an additional 30% off on all add-ons simply by using code Aztecross70 at checkout. Guys, this is a product that speaks for itself. And once you try it, you truly cannot go back to any of those old skincare routines you've had before. Big shout out to Geology for sponsoring today's video. Now I know tomorrow is the mid-season patch for Season of the Wish. But the reason why this update is such a big update is because a lot of the stuff that was supposed to be coming out for the first episode for Final Shape is actually being pushed up to this update tomorrow. Today, guys, we're going to be going over the 10 biggest changes coming with update 7.3.5. But if there's anything you should take away from this video, we're getting hoverboards. And I know what you're thinking. Cross, how? How can you see such a thing and get hyped? You're supposed to be stronger than this, better than this. Fellas, I wish I was better. But you gotta admit, man, it looks pretty sweet. Now to start things off, top change number 1, Prophecy Dungeon refresh. Prophecy Dungeon, guys, is getting a surprising loot refresh with some old Trials of the 9 weapons coming back. Now we do have some current weapons that are cycling out, weapons like Swift Verdict, Long Walk, and the Last Breath auto rifle. Now today is the last day you can go get those weapons. And yes, Prophecy Dungeon is farmable. But starting on Tuesday, tomorrow, we're gonna be seeing the return of the Prosecutor, an Arc Precision 450 round per minute auto, Adjudicate, a kinetic precision SMG, which was one of my favorite SMGs back in year 1, and Relentless, now a Strand high impact pulse rifle instead of just a kinetic. These are phenomenal weapons, guys. Now in addition, the remaining Trials of the 9 weapons will not be leaving, and they will all have new perk pools and new damage types. Judgment is being converted from kinetic to stasis. Darkest Before is being converted from arc to solar, and Sudden Death is going from arc to void. And the best part of all of this is that all of these weapons will have the origin trait crossing over. These weapons have increased range and handling for the top half of their magazine, while rounds from the bottom half of the magazine deal increased damage. Now look, I don't know how much of a stat bump that actually is, but that is an incredibly strong origin trait, potentially pushing these weapons to be best in class. Now to make things even better, the Prophecy Dungeon is a free dungeon, so this is something everybody can jump in on. Now if you're wondering how do I do this dungeon, don't worry. Tomorrow we will have a very detailed guide for both teams and solo players, and the best farms and loot sources for each of these, so be looking out for that. Now the topic of new and returning weapons, this brings us to change number 2. We're seeing a big refresh of weapons for Trials, Iron Banner, and Nightfall rotations. Again, this was supposed to be the launch of an episode, and with the launch of an episode or a season, you get that refresh of rewards. Trials of Osiris is getting a stasis aggressive frame scout rifle called the Prophet, and yes, it's an aggressive, that being a 120. This will come with the origin traits Alacrity, One Quiet Moment, and the newly buffed text balance stock. Now Mercury's actually revealed details on this weapon during the Fire and Range podcast that we already broke down. It's a great interview, by the way. But he revealed that you'll be able to lean into that hipfire playstyle with this weapon, as it can get hipfire grip in one column and offhand strike in the other. Pair that with text balance stock, and fellas, you're going to be hipfiring better than you could with DMT. Now the Summoner auto rifle is also returning to us in Trials. It too will have the origin traits, Alacrity, One Quiet Moment, and Wildcard. For Iron Banner, we're receiving the Tusk of the Boar grenade launcher. To get this is a Strand Waveframe. It's going to come with the origin traits Skulking Wolf and Field Tested. And dude, I would love if this thing came with Hatchling and Chain Reaction. We also have the fan favorite Multi-Mac, which will be returning to us with origin traits. This was one of the best SMGs back in the day. For our Vanguard, we're going to see Nightfall rewards getting a refresh with the Wild Style Special Ammo Grenade Launcher. This is going to be a solar grenade launcher and only the second double fire frame that we've received. The other one being Wilder Flight. It's going to have origin traits like Stunning Recovery, Vanguard's Vindication, and Text Balance stock. We're also getting the Slammer, which is a stasis vortex frame sword, and it's going to be only the second stasis sword in the game. And get this, guys, it can roll with Cold Steel, something that only the Dawning Sword Zephyr could roll with, meaning you're going to be able to sit there, slow, and shatter targets, probably within a single heavy swipe. And then lastly, for our weapons, for Guardian games this year, we have a heavy wave frame grenade launcher, which, by the way, that archetype is getting a nice buff. It's called the Hula Baloo, and this one looks disgusting. It's arc, it can roll with Chain Reaction in one column, bolt shot in the other. Believe me, fellas, we're gonna be going crazy over these guns. On top of Guardian Games bringing us a new weapon, though, we're also getting the Crucible back, which is a strand lightweight scout rifle, and the Title, which is a void aggressive frame SMG. Now moving on, change number 3. Fellas, we have a ton of Sandbox changes. Now, I'm not gonna go through every single one of these because we're most likely gonna be touching on all of these things when the patch notes officially drop on us tomorrow. But just to name a few, target lock is getting nerfed on SMGs. Rocket launchers are seeing a big shakeup with things like precision frames, getting the reserve ammo increase, and its damage penalty reduce. High impacts are also getting its ammo increase. And this is gonna affect exotics like Deathbringer and Gallahorn, as well as Truth. And then we have exotics like Vigilance Wing, which is getting deterministic recoil added to it, therefore making it more consistent, or so in theory. Vex Mythoclast is getting a big range buff that we're gonna be testing pre versus post. Wishin is getting a nerf. The exotic perk True Sight will now deactivate if you leave ADS or if you hold it longer than 3 seconds. Manicore is getting a big shakeup, requiring us to do a complete deep dive on this thing. And Xderis, the grenade launcher, is getting a big PvE buff where its impact damage is increasing by 50%. Now keep in mind, this is just a 20% increase in damage overall, but they're also increasing the rate of fire by 17%. Needless to say, guys, there are lots of changes coming to a variety of weapons and archetypes, and we're not going to get into every single one of these as the patch notes. Those are the things that are official. I'm hoping all these changes make it, but as you know, in the past, some things have been left off the patch notes, and some things have been added. So we'll be covering that first thing tomorrow when they drop. Next, we have change number 4, perk and origin trait changes. Now this seems like a small thing, but they're going to make a big difference on what you decide to keep on your weapons. Hill Clip, which has been a perk many people have scrapped, will now grant cure ×2. Barrel Constrictor will no longer be deactivated upon firing a shot, but instead lasts for 7.5 seconds. And after hearing the buffs, it sounds like it's going to be like a souped up shot package. Loose Change, surprisingly, is going to be a good perk, as it will now grant +20 aim assist and reduce ADS movement speed penalty by 20% with that +50 reload if you apply a 3.0 debuff. Hatchling will no longer lock to precision kills on archetypes that can land crits. It will now trigger from either 1 precision kill or 3 precision kills. Target lock, despite it getting nerfed on SMGs, is still going to be good on other weapons. And Breakneck is going to be a beneficiary of this, as it is also getting target lock added in its 4th column. Envious Assassin is receiving a nerf, capping its magazine size at 100% instead of 150. 1-2 Punch is now going to be known as 1-1 Punch, as it will now deactivate after dealing damage with a powered melee. This is killer, dude. I mean, for real, killer. Text Balance Stock is getting a buff, as it will now grant +20 range and +1.5 degree hip fire precision cone angle, in addition to its other effects. Hake Breach Armaments, Deconstruct and Sundering will now work against Void Souls, Strand Clones, as well as Cabal Shields and Bricks. Needless to say, guys, lots of trait changes. The reason why we're mentioning this is because you may want to look in your vault and just see what you got. Perhaps you may not want to get rid of that Hill Clip roll. Just keep it, just for a little bit. See how it plays out. Now moving on to change number 5. Guys, we have some big ability sandbox changes. Now this is primarily going to be targeting Strand and Solar. Specifically, Strand Hunters, you're getting a nerf. Now there's going to be some buffs in PvE to offset these nerfs, but Ensnaring Slam is seeing its class ability regeneration penalty duration reduced by 50% in PvE activities only. Threaded Spectre is seeing that same class ability regeneration penalty when creating a Threaded Spectre. But to make up for this, Bungie has increased the detonation damage of Threaded Spectre by 25% against PvE combatants. Now Threadlings themselves are seeing PvP nerfs. Bungie increased the aim assist shape size from 0.41 meters to 0.5 on Threadlings to make them easier to shoot. They also reduce base damage versus enemy players from 40 to 35, and with Thread of Evolution being included, that's from 45 to 38.5. Now the reason why this is an even bigger deal tomorrow is because we have some health pool changes that we're going to get into in just a moment, but this may be a much bigger nerf than what people realize. Arcane Needle, for my Strand Warlocks, you are getting a massive buff. Everything about your melee should be feeling better in update 7.3.5. From the tracking, from the aim assist, from the range. In theory, your melee should be one of the best in the game. For our solo classes, Restoration and Radiance are seeing some big changes. The biggest one being that the maximum duration of Restoration and Radiant buffs were being incorrectly stored, which is why their buff timers would reset. Bungie states that they've resolved similar issues with shorter restoration sources like Sunspots with Soul Invictus. Ember of Mercy and Empyrean are also seeing some adjustments, where Ember of Mercy will now extend your current restoration duration by 2 seconds when a fire sprite is collected. And if you don't already have restoration, a fire sprite will grant it to you for 2 seconds. And the extension of restoration is also increased to 3 seconds while Ember of Solace is equipped. TLDR, guys, when you pick up a fire sprite, it should not reset or drop your restoration duration down to 3 seconds. Instead, it should top things off. as it should be. Now, Ember of Empyrean, they've increased the maximum duration extension from 12 seconds to 15 seconds, and it actually depends on the type of target you defeat, meaning if it's an elite or weaker combatants, you'll get less time, versus if it's a champion or stronger combatants. Consecration. Bungie has buffed this tremendously, increasing the travel distance of the initial ground follow. They also increased the height of the slam ground follow detonation by about 1 meter. Everything here, guys, is supposed to be a lot better for my consecration users. Almost to the point that we may actually be able to utilize this even in game modes like PvP. Faster tracking, more reach, all of these should net you more kabloomies. Now this takes us to the overall Crucible Sandbox overhaul. Change number 6. Guys, we have not seen a change like this since Forsaken. For the first time ever, a Guardian's health is increasing. For the longest time, we have had health pools that have been somewhere between 186 and 200. Now for the first time, we are going to have health pools between 216 and 230, depending on your resilience level. That means you're going to have 100 health and somewhere between 116 and 130 shield. Bungie has effectively increased the health pool for every Guardian in PvP, no matter the game mode. And the reason for this is because they want to put more emphasis on you landing crits. Optimal time to kills should remain the same. 2 melees to get a kill should also be the same. Abilities like Arc Flux Grenades with a 60% buff should still be able to net you a one-hit sticky kill. There's a variety of buffs that have been handed out to certain weapons to maintain that same optimal TTK value. At the same time, we've also seen some dial backs. For instance, hand cannons has had their body shot damage decreased by 5%. The point of this, guys, is the emphasis again is on landing crits. If you land a body shot, you will be punched. Now, at the peak of all of this are these special ammo changes. That goes alongside this Crucible overhaul. You see, you have to earn special ammo rather than just die, respawn with 2 more shots. You'll have that special meter, just like it was present in all of our checkmate activities. Whether it's from getting kills, assists, capturing objectives, these things will net you progress on that special meter, and then eventually special ammo. Now, because primary weapons are going to be such a focus, Bungie wanted to target certain primary weapons that were a bit out of band in this environment. Things like Fighting Lion is actually getting a 20% decrease in damage. Deva's Ruin is seeing its charge beam decreased by 15%. Forerunner is getting its flinch delta players reduced by 17.5%, but also a 20% buff inside of PvP. Symmetry is seeing its revolution damage versus players increased by 16%, but keep in mind, that's just to maintain that Symmetry can still snag those kills in those revolution shots. Now moving on to change number 7, Trials of Osiris. Guys, this is a massive change for Trials, and I will say this weekend for Trials should be the best weekend of Trials you probably have ever played. Not only due to these sandbox changes, but also these changes to our passages. For instance, Passage of Ferocity states that if you have not been flawless for that week, losses after 3 wins will simply reset you back to 3 wins instead of flowing your cards. Guys, you literally just have to make it to 3, and now you just move the starting point up, and you just gotta get 4. And even if you lose, don't worry, your card won't be flawed. You just keep going back to 3 wins. Now, Bungie is also introducing a new passage called Passage of Persistence, where losses following a win will simply remove a win from your card. Now, consecutive losses do not remove additional wins. Now, this also needs to be mentioned here that if you get to 7 wins, you do get the weekly adept weapon. But if you had lost at all on that card, you of course can't go to the lighthouse. Now, again, if you have tons of losses, it's okay. For as long as you have 7 wins, you will still get the adept drop. This is a huge change for anyone wanting to attempt Trials of Osiris. Now, Bungie's also making changes. Things like 3-person fire teams will get an additional 50% chance to drop the non-adept Trials weekly weapon reward, as well as a 50% chance to get a Trials Ingram, as well as more reputation. This is a good change for trios, but for Passage of Ferocity and Passage of Persistence, this is a great change for anyone wanting to try Trials for the first time. Now, moving on, we have comp changes. This was the last thing I expected from Bungie. Now, we have the ability to focus previous comp weapons currently right now in the game, which is amazing. You also have the weekly challenge, which rewards Ascendant Alloys. But in update 7.3.5, Bungie, for the first time ever, is adding Artifice Armor to the comp playlist. So far, the only places in the game you'll be able to get Artifice Armor includes Master Dungeons and now Competitive. This will be a weekly reward on a new 3rd tier of the Competitive Division Weekly Challenge for players that are Gold 3 or above. Now, after completion of this weekly challenge, Artifice Armor has a chance to drop on further victories. And this armor is going to be dropping on old Year 1 Crucible gear. So if you miss this gear, guys, you'll be back. And to sweeten the pot a bit more, exotic weapon catalysts have an increased drop chance in the competitive playlist. Moving on, we have change number 8. Fellas, we're getting new maps. Yeah, you heard that right. New maps. That map pack that Bungie had brought up a while back, it's happening. This includes Eventide Labs on Europa, Cirrus Plaza on Neomuna, and Dissonance on the terraformed Pyramid ship. Now, alongside these maps, we're also getting new game modes. A 3v3 King of the Hill mode called called Collision, which will be entering Crucible Labs. The association here is that it's like Hardpoint from Call of Duty. Now in Collision, Bungie is also going to be testing out its alternate special ammo system, utilizing something that we had back in Destiny 1, ammo crates. That's right, guys, special ammo crates that you can pick up at various places alongside the map. On top of that, we're getting a game mode called Hardware. Get this, fellas, no abilities. The whole game mode is just weapons, with special and heavy ammo being found around the map. I'm interested to see how this plays out, guys. I don't know, you may not be crazy about Crucible, but I get comments all the time that are like, Cross, I would dominate if there weren't abilities inside of Crucible. Well, hey man, now is your time. Now finally, change number 10, we are getting a new revamped Guardian Games. It's now being labeled as Guardian Games All-Stars. This launches tomorrow. Now the biggest change is obviously the hoverboard, also known as skimmers. And let me just say, this is going to single-handedly kill all sparrows. And it's so funny because Bungie literally just buffed the speed of all sparrows to match always on time. And now we get this. If you think I'm going to use anything but these skimmers, come on. How can I go back to just sitting on my mini sparrow again? It just don't hit the same. Now you'll be able to pick up this hoverboard from Eva after completing the onboarding quests, which we will have a guide on. But for the most part, Guardian Games is going to work similar to last year's. You get your class item from Eva, you complete contender cards. This year they've added a new tier called Diamond, and Diamond medallions are worth a lot, which is why they're limiting them to only 3 a week. Now 2 of them you can get from in-game activities, but the third you can actually get as a Twitch drop from watching a Destiny 2 streamer. If you watch any Destiny 2 streamer for 2 hours, you can get this diamond. Now all medallions banked will be counted daily, and as you know, this podium will change depending on the contributions from all classes. This is a class versus class versus class event. Guys, it should be a good time, and if you want to come by the stream, feel free to do so. We'll be representing my Titans. I look forward to us dominating another year. With that being said, guys, that is your 10 biggest changes coming for update 7.3.5 and this March update. Let me know in the comments below if we missed anything. We have a number of things laid out for you guys over the next few days, from guides for Guardian Games, how to get that hoverboard quickly, how to optimize, and of course, all the pre-post testing for Sandbox changes to come. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.